Hello everybody and welcome back to the SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom playthrough. In this part we're going to be finishing up Rock Bottom and moving on to less depressing looking areas because man, this place is weird looking. Which is the point, but still. I've never really liked the really dark and ominous themed areas in games most of the time. Like it's just like whenever you just go into a cave for no reason in a RPG, well, there's usually a reason in an RPG, but whenever you go into a cave, you're like, oh. Great.
Usually that reason is it's between you and the place you're actually going, but, you know.
Or there's like some MacGuffin you need to open a door or whatever in order to... Yeah, pretty much. But when you just, just go into this cave, it's like the least interesting part of the game.
Unless it's an ice cavern.
Well, that's true, but that's more interesting to me than if you're just going into some random cave because, oh, you have to get to Cerulean and Mount Moon's the only way. So, you know.
It really depends on the scenery.
What hit me there, for the record?
Yeah.
Like, I was just trying to pick up that pair of underwear.
I think that was shooting robots at you.
These little blocky robots just remind me of enemies from fucking Gex. In fact, this entire sequence reminds me of the space level from Gex.
Is that the Gex game we played, or...?
Yeah, it's Gex 2.
Okay.
Where Gex is dressed like a stormtrooper, jumping around on rocks in outer space with little robots chasing after him.
Okay. So Gex 1 was the 2D one, right?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
And Gex 3 was the other 3D one.
The other 3D one, yeah. Objectively the better one. But, you know, I still prefer 2.
Did they ever make a Gex 4, or did they decide enough was... Okay, good.
They decided enough was enough, and it was kind of...
It was
a little too topical.
It was toward the end of the, PS1's lifespan, too, so... It was just one of those series that didn't survive past that generation.
Yeah. So we're not going to get a...
To be fair, a lot of franchises from that era that were introduced in that era didn't last.
Yeah.
So I suppose we're not due to get a Gex retuned trilogy anytime soon?
It's on Square's potential list of things.
Well, hold the phone. Square owns...
Well, they own the company that made it.
Yeah, eat it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Eidos, however you pronounce that. The same
Eidos.
company that owns Tomb Raider.
Tomb Raider and Hitman, I think, as well.
Yeah, and Legacy of Kain, but we're not going to see that come back anytime soon either. And even if we did, I probably wouldn't be super interested because the writer is with well, they were with Naughty Dog last time I checked, but that was a while ago. They might be with someone else. Amy Hennig worked on Uncharted. So, yeah.
You see, that's not what I would have expected a writer who worked on a vampire story to end up doing, but good for her, I suppose, because those games.
She's one of the genuinely best writers in video games, as far as I'm concerned. So.
And I mean, Uncharted is really well known and received, so that's great for her, because Legacy of Kain is about as niche as it gets. In terms of,
there are undoubtedly other writers on the Uncharted series, and I'm not sure exactly to what extent Amy Hennig is involved in that series, but it is, in my experience, it's a pretty damn well-written series. So
I don't really know much about the plot to Uncharted. I know that Nathan Drake snarks a lot.
Knock off Indiana Jones does lots of stunts.
Yeah, basically that. But, you know, the moment-to-moment writing is pretty damn good. Uncharted 3's overall story is a bit of a hot mess, but even that game is good on a moment-to-moment basis.
Which is kind of the most important thing when you're doing that kind of game. Because that's not the kind of game I think people play for the overarching plot most of the time.
Well, the overarching plot still lends a lot of value to the story. The problem with Uncharted 3 is kind of that this was something that they admitted to. They designed the areas and then they wrote the story around it, and they wanted to have a lot of areas on this like massive globetrotting adventure, so the whole thing kind of doesn't tie together at all. They designed the areas and the scenes, like they knew they wanted to have a chase sequence in this one one segment, but they didn't know who would be chased or why. So the character they wound up putting into that didn't really make a whole lot of sense in the end.
That tends to happen in a lot of games where they make up a sequence first and they have to
right around it. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
because I've been playing Dead Rising recently, and apparently the final boss of that game was written like at the very beginning. And if you've never played it, it's like you're fighting a tank, basically, is what's going on. And it's just like, okay, so why is there this random military facility less than a mile away from a shopping mall? The answer, they don't explain it, so whatever. I mean, granted, Dead Rising is not a game you play for the plot either, so I'm not really complaining. But
Dead Rising does have a decent story to it, though.
The story is good in a bad way, if that makes sense. It's trying to be.
It's good in a hokey, tongue-in-cheek kind of way.
Yeah, it's trying to be a B zombie movie. Is basically what it's going.
I like how the hero is like a celebrity, and then the celebrity status burns out between games.
Yeah, I need to play Off the Record. I also need to finish 2 because I died on the final boss, turned the game off, and Smash Brothers came out the next day, and so I haven't gone back to it since. I mean, granted though, at the time of this recording, Smash Brothers came out like 4 days ago, so I've still got
and we're
time.
still playing it.
It'll be better than what I did with Ocarina of Time, where I got to the final boss and then turned the game off for like 6 months before finishing it.
Did you just have to backtrack out of rock bottom?
No, I left because I was sick
Done.
of it. Is basically what happened. I checked my menu. I was like, I got most of the crap in here. I'm done, pretty much. I think all that was left was me to unlock a shortcut back to the beginning of the level.
Man. Oh man, for 1 second I thought we were looking at like the snow area in Metroid Prime. I don't know why that popped into my head.
If we played the Phendrana Drifts music, it might be fitting, I guess. It's this is the closest thing to a snow area that we're gonna get because it's a ski lodge, but instead of it being snow, it's just sand because you can't have snow under. No, they do have snow underwater in the Christmas episode, but it just doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it just falls on Sandy's house and that's it.
Yeah, basically. Oh, that's another great episode of the show.
I found if you keep your marbles in a bag, they don't get lost as often.
Oh man, this guy.
SpongeBob is too pure for this world. That's, I think, okay, so at this point, a couple of the other episodes have gone up, so we've been able to read comments, and people in the comment section have brought up a good point in why a lot of the later seasons don't feel as good. And one of the things that people brought up is that the writing kind of seemed to get more mean-spirited, which I mean, not that mean-spirited comedy can't work. Like, for example,
That's almost entirely of Invader Zim. So
yeah, Invader Zim. There are other shows like South Park is absolutely mean-spirited in everything that it does, and there are some really funny episodes of that show. It's not really my speed, but they do have some funny. They do, yeah. Family Guy, that one succeeds less to me, but
It's Family Guy. I liked for the first couple seasons. I have the DVD on my shelf actually, but it sort of gets lost in all the references as it goes on.
Yeah, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is not that mean-spirited comedy can't work, but it just seems so at odds with the earlier episodes of SpongeBob, where the characters aren't, or SpongeBob at the very least, SpongeBob and Patrick aren't really mean people. They're just kind of clueless. So if they act in a mean-spirited way, or if the show in general has a mean-spirited vibe, then it ends up not feeling right, you know? It's a hard line to cross, because after you get to whatever many episodes it is, I'm trying to jump on this
non-solid coral.
Yeah, which is weird though, because literally everything else in this game is solid, is programmed to be solid. Like even the flags that are hanging from certain things are programmed to be solid, and you can stand on them, which is bizarre, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, making sure to find that balance of making new stuff feel different, but also not losing the tone of the original show is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
You know, the more familiar someone is with something, the more that kind of stuff sticks out.
Yeah, that's very true. If something's, I mean, granted, change is also important because, you know, like how often do we go off on like Call of Duty or Battlefield or whatever for trying to be the same thing over and over again?
Well,
you
like
know?
that is mostly mechanical.
And that's also mostly because it's a yearly release.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, but it's not just that though, because there are other things like Mega Man is something I'm thinking of right off the bat, where the first 6 games, you know, powers aside, are very, very similar, and whether or not you want them to be more different is a matter of preference. You know, it's just like, okay, would we rather have Mega Man 65 be a much different game, or should we just make a new series for someone who wants something different and make Mega Man Classic just the same for people who want
hold on.
the same kind of game?
Isn't Mega Man 65 just Mega Man Legends 2?
John, sit down, have a drink.
No, I was sure.
Oh man. But yeah, that's a good point. When it comes to yearly releases, the series that I would point to show how to do change-ups right would probably be Yakuza. Because, well, it's not so much yearly over here because it only just recently sort of became popular over here. But, you know, when they feel that, like, the main series is getting too stale, they'll do a samurai spin-off for a year. Or they'll go do a prequel in the 80s. And even when they're sticking with the main series, they use the passage of time between games to shake things up. Like, the characters get older, and that reflects in their character. So they know how to make things feel familiar without necessarily, you know, having it always be the same. And then, of course, halfway through the series, they started introducing new characters to play as, and that worked out too. And it all just sort of comes together all nice and clean. I'm not really sure why. There's things about that series that really should not go together. Huh.